Welcome to my video review of the Priority Gemini. My motivation in doing this review is that when I was looking for reviews of this bike earlier, I had a hard time finding reviews outside of the company reviews. And so now that I've owned the bike since November, and I've had the opportunity to put roughly 350 miles on the bike since then, I think I have enough time on the bike and enough miles ridden on the bike to give you a preliminary review of my thoughts on the bike, especially if you're going to be looking into this bike sometime later this year as the riding season gets underway. This is my first video review of any products, so please bear with me. I have a few notes sitting down beside me here so I don't miss too many things as I go through what I like about the bike and some of the features of it. But before I start, I wanted to give you just a quick background of my experience with Priority. I am not paid by Priority. They don't have any idea I'm doing this review. I'm just a guy that's purchased a few of their bikes over the last 6 years or so. And so I have a good understanding of what this company is all about. And my story starts back in 2018 when I was looking for an electric bike for my wife. And as I was looking around at different options, I accidentally stumbled across the Priority website. I really liked what I saw with their electric bike at the time, the Embark, which is their first one. And what I liked about it was the low maintenance, the sealed hubs, the Gates carbon belt, which eliminates the need to degrease and lube and take care of a chain that gets wet and muddy. And I really like these features because it really is a bike that you can just get on and ride, enjoy it in all types of weather conditions. And at the most, all you need to do is hose it down, wipe it, and you're good to go again. So that's what drew me to it. And yet, because these electric bikes are expensive, and I never bought a bike online, a consumer direct bike, I had some reservations about it. So what I ended up doing was on a Sunday afternoon, I called Priority just to gather some information and get some sizing information for my wife. And when I make the call, who do I get on the phone but this nice gentleman who is guiding me through the process, talking about the product, answering all my questions. And as it turns out, I'm talking to Dave, who is one of the founders of Priority Bikes. So we got to talking quite a bit. I felt more comfortable with making the purchase. I love the features of the bike. So to make a long story short, I ended up purchasing the electric bike for my wife, and I also purchased for myself their commuter bike, the 600, which features their pinion shifting system. So my wife has been enjoying the Priority up to yesterday still and going strong. She has over 9,000 miles on this bike, and she's not an avid biker, but we bought the bike so she can get out with me and not have to worry about distance, terrain. It opens up a whole new type of riding for her, and she's proof that an electronic bike is not cheating. She gets a great workout. She uses just the assist that she needs, and I would recommend that bike for anybody. Now, for me, I really enjoyed my 600, and I enjoyed that for about 3 years. But then I'm not a flat bar type of rider. I prefer the drop bar. And to convert the 600, to a drop bar with the pinion system that's on it would have been nearly impossible. So I opted to sell the 600, and at the time, Priority had come out with its first gravel bike, the Apollo, which is a drop bar. So I bought the Apollo, which I did enjoy. But what I wasn't real keen on was the Shimano Alpine 11-speed rear hub. I did like that it was low maintenance, it was sealed, but I didn't enjoy as much as the pinion gearbox that I had on the 600. And I also wasn't real pleased with the mechanical disc brakes that came on it. All my other bikes are hydraulic disc brakes, and there's a clear difference between the mechanical disc brakes and the hydraulic disc brakes. So when I did a review for Priority on the Apollo, I mentioned that on my wish list for any improvements, the perfect Apollo, if you would be to, number one, add hydraulic disc brakes to the bike for better stopping power, especially off-road. And also, I was hoping for a pinion type gearbox, for this gravel bike, because the range of gears is so wide at 600% range that I know you never run out of a gear. Whether you're going up the steepest uphill or descending down the steepest downhill, you always have plenty of gear. And so I was enjoying the Apollo, and lo and behold, just last year, I see that they come out with the Gemini gravel bike, which has everything that I had been hoping for, including the hydraulic disc brakes and the pinion gearbox. And the bonus with this pinion gearbox is that it's electronic, which I thought was just fantastic. So I sold my Apollo and I purchased the Gemini. And so that brought me to November of 2024. I've been able to ride it through November, most of December, and just a little bit of January. Winter's been tough here in Pittsburgh. But I wanted to just give you a background of the Priority bikes I've owned. And so Priority's been around for 10 years. I purchased our first bikes from Priority about 3.5 years into their existence. They started out emphasizing the commuter urban market, and they've been expanding ever since. I think their product is bomb-proof. I have not had any issues, knock on wood, with any of their products. And for any of you interested in the Gemini, I would highly recommend it. So let's talk about the Gemini features. It's a performance gravel bike for Priority. It is an aluminum frame, has a carbon fork, gives you the very similar gravel geometry that you would see on many gravel bikes. A little slacker, a little more upright, very comfortable though. You have full hydraulic disc brakes, which I think are paramount, especially when you're riding gravel. The modulation is better. Certainly a huge upgrade, from the Apollo. And the keynote feature, if you would, of this bike is the pinion gearbox. And really the bonus feature is it's electronic. So it really does shift very much like my other electronic drivetrains. I have a bike that has Shimano Ultegra Di2. I also have a bike that has SRAM Force, and I also have another gravel bike that has SRAM Rival. So I'm very familiar with the electronic drivetrains, and this drivetrain sits right at the top with all of them, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So as I look at my notes here, I've already covered the riding position basically. It's basically your gravel riding position, and it does work well on gravel. I have not had any issues either on-road or off-road. It's a comfortable bike. The longest ride I've done on the bike so far, being winter, is 30 miles. And if it wasn't so cold, I could have kept going, and so I'm looking forward to getting out some even longer rides, when spring rolls around here in another month or so. As far as the ride quality, it's been exceptional for me, as I wrote down in my notes. Being an aluminum frame bike, as you may or may not know, aluminum frames can be more harsh, certainly, than steel or even carbon fiber. But this bike does have carbon fork, which helps take some of the chatter, out of your ride. And and I'm looking here at my notes. Anything else? It's as I said earlier, it's a more relaxed, position. It's a more upright position, and so it's a type of bike you could be on, literally all day and put, tens of miles in and still be comfortable at the end of the day. And then going back to the ride quality, what I did, I kept the bike stock to this date. The only thing I've done of note is I've converted the wheels to tubeless, and that just encompassed, it comes with WTB tubeless ready rims. I had to tape the rims and remount the tires. It was a seamless process. I was taking my time on a snowy winter day, and taking my time. It took me, an hour and 15 minutes, just taking my time, and I'd never taped a rim before, so it probably took me a little bit longer just because I wanted to make sure I had done it right. But the combination of the carbon fork and really converting to tubeless, which allows me to run lower pressures with a 40 millimeter tire. And there is clearance for up to 45 millimeter tires if you ever need to go a little bit wider. I've been extremely comfortable both on-road and off-road. And I usually run off-road tire pressures anywhere between 25 and 30 PSI. If I go on the road, somewhere between 35, 37 PSI. Very, very comfortable, especially our roads, get very mangled during the winter with all the plowing, change in temperatures, a lot of buckles, cracks. Bike is very, very comfortable given the conditions. So I did want to get into that a little bit. Now about the pinion gearbox, the electronic shifting. I had read and I had seen in a couple of videos I watched, some people were not sold on it. I heard the biggest gripe was that you couldn't shift under load. I didn't find that to be the case, or I haven't found that to be the case so far. What differentiates this bike from Priority from the other ones that I've owned is that for the internal hub gears, you need to pause your pedaling for a moment in order to shift smoothly, which almost acts like a clutch, if you would. And it takes just a ride or so to get used to that. But there are advantages where you can shift gears without, moving. So if you find yourself caught at the bottom of the hill in the wrong gear when you were stopped, you could just shift to the gear that you want before you start, and you're all ready to go. Conversely, if you're at the top of the hill and for whatever reason you haven't prepared and you've got a steep descent, well, as you're descending, coasting, you can shift to the gear you're looking for and you're good to go. So I do like that about the internal gearing that you find on the Priority bikes. Now, what I had read and heard was that people said when they were going up hills and trying to shift under load, that the gearbox wouldn't shift or it wouldn't shift well. I haven't found that to be the case because I never tried to shift under heavy load, even with my more conventional electronic drivetrains. And so I know that they have a fail-safe in there that if there's too much load, it will not shift until the load is light enough to allow for the shift. I have found as long as you try to back off just a tad as you're heading up an ascent and you just back off on the pressure a bit, I haven't missed a shift yet. I have found it to be bomb-proof. I love it. It shifts just as well as my SRAM and Shimano drivetrains. And as far as the battery life, fantastic. I have so far about 350 miles on the bike, as I've said, and I have not had to fully charge the bike or the battery yet. I've topped off once a little bit just because I was a little wary, but I still had well over 50%, at over 250 miles. So just to give you an idea, and I shift a lot. because the terrain here in southwestern Pennsylvania is very hilly, a lot of up and down, and so to keep a steady cadence, you're constantly shifting either up or down. So for me, battery life is important. So the bike for me has been fantastic so far in all conditions. I've really enjoyed the bike. Let's see, check my notes real quick. Oh, I guess the question is, are there any aspects of the bike that are different from my traditional drivetrain bikes? The weight. Most of my bikes are, under 20 pounds. And especially my Aero road bike sits about 17 pounds. My Trek Checkpoint, sits about, 18 and a half pounds. So my priority in a size small, my Gemini, comes in at about 25 pounds, maybe 24 point something, but round up to 25 pounds. So that for extra 5 or 6 pounds, you do feel it, especially if you're going up a long hill versus, a lighter carbon fiber bike. Now, with that said, I'm not racing anymore. I'm too old for that. I do most of my riding just to get out. So the extra weight is not a problem for me. But you will notice a difference in the weight between a higher performance carbon bike versus this Priority. I joke with my buddies, it rides more like a Buick, than a Ferrari, but that's what it's meant to be. This is more of a niche bike. For me, it fits just an outstanding niche. I like the low maintenance aspect of it. I use the bike a lot when we travel, because when we travel, of course, weather's going to change. I don't have to worry about the bike getting wet, getting muddy, this time of year getting snowed on. I don't have to worry about rust, chains, degreasing, re-greasing. I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. It is just a hose down, wipe down, looks brand new, when I'm finished. I use the bike as an urban commuter. We go into the city a lot. Pittsburgh has done a great job adding bike lanes, bike trails. You can really navigate the entire city with hardly getting on a main road. So I use this bike for that. I also use the bike if I'm going to a gravel event, a Grand Fondo or something like that, where I know the weather is going to be just absolutely atrocious. And this is a bike, again, that I don't have to worry about drivetrain getting mucked up, in the middle of the ride. It's easy to take care of after the ride. So it really has its place for me, in certain riding situations. So I still use my Trek Checkpoint quite often, but this is a nice alternative to have, a nice option to have, if the conditions warrant it. So that's one thing I wanted to make clear as well. It is different, and that's a little bit heavier, and the weight comes primarily from the pinion gearbox. There's always a trade-off in these types of things, and for me, I think the trade-off is worth it. If you're looking to race gravel, the Gemini probably is not the bike you're looking for. If you're looking to, get out on a gravel route and you're looking more to ride it in a non-racing situation, I think it's a perfect option. Now, one thing I would change on the bike, even though I haven't changed anything up to this point other than converting to tubeless, I would consider changing the wheels. Obviously Priority made this very well priced, a great value for what you get in the bike. That was the other thing I was going to talk about. But one area where I think that I would look into changing would be a better set of wheels, whether that be aluminum or even maybe carbon. And for that, I'd probably have to take that to the bike shop because it may require some spacers. And so let the experts handle that. But other than that, I don't see a need to change everything or anything at all at this point. I think the bike has been fantastic. I think it will be fantastic. And if you're looking at a Priority, the Carbon Gates belt is super. We haven't had any problems. My wife, like I said, has over 9,000 miles on her original belt, and it's still going strong. So it really does last longer than a chain. I'm changing chains every 2,000 to 2,500 miles. So she's had her bike now for 8 years, over 8 years at this point, and no, 7 years, I should say. Excuse me, 7 years. And so she hasn't changed a belt. The only thing I've done to her priority is I changed tires and I put new brake pads on. That's been it, over those years. And I've never had to do anything with my priorities. The 600 I owned for 3 years. The Apollo I owned for a little over a year. Didn't have to do anything to it upon selling it. So I'm not expecting any issues with this. So I hope this review helps you a little bit. It's my first review. I may or may not have missed anything. I'll find out later. But I hope that the information gives you a little bit of assist in helping you make a decision on the priority. If you have any questions or anything, please leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Hey, thanks for watching and good luck with your shopping, bike shopping. If you get a priority, I think you'll enjoy it as much as I do.